Namaste children, how are you all? I hope you are fine. In the last class we discussed that is the visual representation of data. In that we discussed the bar graph. What is bar graph? How to draw a bar graph? How to choose a proper scale to draw a bar graph? And we answered some of the questions on the bar graph by observing the data which is represented in the form of a bar graph. Now we will discuss in this class double bar graph. How to represent the double bar graph, where we use this double bar graph. So double bar graph, it is what representation of data of two collections like marks scored in quarterly examination, marks scored in half yearly examinations, or marks scored in term 1 examination and term 2 examination. Similarly, the minimum temperatures and maximum temperatures of a city in the last week, and similarly the rainfall of two cities in the last month. Like this, two data if you collected, that data we can represent in the form of a double bar graph. The word double means two bar graphs at a time will represent. So we can represent the data also in the form of two individual bar graphs. So if we represent them two individual bar graphs, it is a little bit difficult to compare this data using the two individual bar graphs. If you draw that two bar graphs together, that is in the form of a double bar graph, then it is very easy to us to compare the data at a glance. Just by seeing the data we can answer the questions and we can compare the data. So that's why it is more helpful when the data is of two collections. As I mentioned some of the examples. So that data can be represented in the form of a double bar graph. So where we come across, see when a survey is conducted about the sports, some people are interested to watch the sports, some people are interested to play the sports. So in that survey we can compare which sport is watched more, or which sport is their favorite, what it is a sport. Like this we can compare the data using the double bar graph. So how to construct a double bar graph? It is quite common, as that is our bar graph. We need to take a proper scale based on the data which is given, and we should take this frequencies on what it is horizontal line you can take, or you can take on the vertical line, and the data related to these marks or the years or the cities, that we should mention on the either of these axis, that is horizontal line or vertical line. Then we will represent the data side by side. We will represent the bars of one thing, that is called a double bar graph, and we will choose the proper scale to represent the data in the form of a double bar graph. Now we will discuss with an example of double bar graph. Now, example, represent the following data in the form of a double bar graph. So this data will give us information about 5 students, their marks out of 25 in quarterly and half yearly examinations. So quarterly marks, who are the students? Ashish, Arun, Maya, Rita and Vijay. Quarterly marks of Ashish, it is 10, Arun 15, then Maya 12, Rita 20, Vijay it is 9. Similarly, half yearly examinations 15, 18, 16, 21 and 25 are the marks scored by Ashish, Arun, Maya, Rita and Vijay in half yearly examinations. Now we wanted to compare the marks scored by these 5 students in quarterly and half yearly. Just by looking into this data, we cannot immediately say that which student improved a lot, or which students require more attention to make him improve. So all those things, conclusions we can draw by representing this data in the form of a bar graph. So observe the values 10, 15, 12, 25, 9, 15, 18, 16, 21 and 25 is the highest value, and the least value here it is at 9 is there. So what scale we can choose? Better we can choose 1 centimeter is equals to 5 marks. If you take 1 centimeter is equals to 10 marks, we will get only 3 widths, that is 10, 20 and 30. It is very a small figure will get. So better take 1 centimeter is equals to 5 marks is the scale, and represent this data in the form of a double bar graph. So how to draw a double bar graph? It is take it is vertical line and one horizontal line you draw. Vertical line and horizontal line, a straight line you should draw, and in this straight line represent the values. On a vertical line, it is a vertical line what we are representing here, it is number of marks. Number of marks we are representing. So what is the scale we have to choose here? It is the scale, it is scale is 1 centimeter is equals to 5 marks. So the scale it is 1 centimeter is equals to 5 marks we are taking here. So it is 0 and this is 5 and it is 10, it is 15 and then it is 20 and then it is 25. See here 10, 15, 20, 25. So 25. At proper distances we should take this marks 5, 10, 15, 20 and 25. Even we take one more, that is 30 we will take. One more we have to take than the highest value, that scale is 25. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 and 30 is the marks which we have represented on the vertical line. Now we need to represent, see, as I told, here we will leave what a space between one bar graph, one bar or one data, one kind of data. So equal length should be there. So like this, you please mark. So yesterday in the last class we discussed about what it is, how to take this scale. So here 0 to 5, in between 0 to 5 we have 10 thin lines are there in our graph paper. The 10 lines will represent 5 marks. So then 1 mark is represented by 2 lines. Next to 1 mark will be represented by next 2 lines. Next 1 mark it is next 2 lines. Next 1 mark it is next 2 lines. We discussed in the last class. So here the second line will represent 1 mark. Fourth line will represent 2 marks. Sixth line will represent 3 marks. And eighth line will represent 4 marks. 10th line will represent 5 marks. Next again 5 to 10 we have 10 lines are there. Each 2 lines will represent 1 mark. So 12th line will represent what? 6 marks. 14th line will represent what it is? 7 marks. And 16th line will represent 8 marks. And so on. We can represent those marks between 5 and 10. Similarly 10 and 15 and 15 and 20, those marks like 16, 17, 18, 19, 19 or 21, 22, 23 etc. we can represent by taking 2 lines is equals to 1 line. Now you see here the first Asis. Who is he? It is Asis. How many marks he got in quarterly? It is he got in quarterly examination 10 marks he got, and half yearly examination 15 marks he got. So leave this line, quarterly 10 marks. So here this will represent quarterly marks. It is how many marks he scored? It is 10 marks. And how many marks he scored in half yearly examination? See here we are representing side by side like this. So this is whose data it is? This is the data of Asis. So he scored quarterly and half yearly examinations. So you can differentiate quarterly with one color and all quarterly marks with one color and all what it is half yearly marks with one color. So I am differentiating with lines, slant lines I am drawing. So these lines what it is, it represents, it is representing what? This is half yearly marks and this is quarterly marks. Half yearly he got 15 and quarterly he got 10 marks he got. So this is Asis. Next leave 1 centimeter width. Then second student, who is second student? Arun. How many marks he scored? He scored in quarterly 15 marks. So 15 marks means this is exactly here it is there. So represent 15 marks related to Arun. So this is quarterly marks 15, and then 18 marks he scored in half yearly examination. How many marks he scored? 18 marks. 18 marks means it will be in between 15 and 20. As I told you, each two lines will represent 1 mark. That is 16 will represented second line, then 17 will be represented it is fourth line, and 16 will be 18 will be represented, which line it is? 18 will be represented, it is a sixth line. So little more I'll take that is you see on your graph paper, take sixth line from 15, that will give you what? 18 marks. So this is 18 marks he scored in half yearly examination. Who? Arun. So I am representing with the lines. This lines represented bar is what it is showing. It is showing marks represented in the half yearly examination. So who is he? Here it is. This is who is he? Arun. It is Arun. Next, who is this? Third student, it is Maya. She scored 12 marks in quarterly and half year it is 16 marks. So leave one space, and 12 marks means it is between 10 and 15. So 11 will represent the second line, 12 will represent fourth line, that is from 10. So you choose fourth line, maybe approximately it may be added here. So from here draw, and this will give us what it is 14 marks, 12 marks scored by Maya in quarterly examinations, and 16 marks she scored. 16 marks means above 15, the second line, above 15, the second line little more. So this will give you what 15 marks, and this will give you the second line. So it is 16 marks. So 16 marks she scored in the half yearly examinations. So who is she? It is Maya. Like this you write the name of the students. So and represent this with lines, or you can shade with colors. See that all quarterly one color and all half yearly one color you should choose, and you can shade those bars with the different colors. Next, Rita. Rita scored 20 marks in quarterly and half yearly it is 21 marks. See, there is little improvement, that is only 1 mark is she improved. So leave one space, and Rita it is 20 marks. So this will represent 20 marks exactly at here you see, and draw a line like this. So this will give us what? Marks scored by Rita in quarterly. So half yearly how many marks is scored? 21, just 1 mark more. So the second line after 20 will represent what it is? 21 marks. So second line you choose and draw a line like this. So this will get us what? Marks scored by Rita in half yearly and quarterly. Half yearly she scored 20, and here she scored it is 21 marks in the half yearly examinations. So half yearly examinations I am drawing with the lines to differentiate both half yearly and quarterly examinations. Like this will represent. Next, the last student Vijay. He scored just 9 marks in quarterly examination, but in the half yearly it is 25 marks he scored. We will see a lot of improvement we found in Vijay's score. So Vijay 9 marks. 9 marks means here 10 and 5. So where we get below the second line of 10 will give us what? 9. So it is 9 and 10, and then it is little below like this. So this will give us 9 marks scored by Vijay in quarterly examination, and 25 marks is scored in half year. This will represent 25. So you will take it here exactly opposite to here and draw the line. Will give us 25 marks scored by him. Who? Vijay in the half yearly examinations. So like this we will represent the data in the form of a double bar graph. So who is he? It is Vijay. So Vijay score it is. Like this we represented. See, the bars with the lines will represent as what it is it is half yearly marks. That is, Ashish scored 15 marks, Arun scored 18 marks, Maya scored 16 marks, Rita scored 21 marks, and Vijay scored 25 marks in half yearly. Whereas in quarterly it is Ashish 10 marks, Arun 15 marks, Maya 12 marks, Rita 20 marks, and Vijay 9 marks. You see, like this we represent the data. How do we represent? First thing it is, we should choose this proper scale. As per that proper scale, we should take the numbers on the horizontal line, vertical line, or horizontal line also you can represent. So we are taking two bars of one person, of one student together. We are saying, okay, that is side by side we are taking, and we are drawing the two bars. One bar we are differentiating with the lines. You can draw using the your color pencils. You can draw with the color shade with the colors. Like this, we will represent the data. So many questions can be asked on this double bar graph. In which student you find a lot of improvement? See here these bars. See, this is the quarterly and it is half yearly. A huge improvement is there in Vijay. So which student is Vijay? In Vijay we found a lot of improvement. Now even if you see what it is, Rita, she scored 20 and it is 21 marks in half yearly examinations. Like this, and who scored, in which student you find less improvement? It is just Rita, only 1 mark is there improvement. Whereas Maya, it is 4 marks are there, here 3 marks, and here 5 marks are there. But here 16 marks improvement is there. So based on this, the teacher can take some precautionary steps, remedial steps to make the children to improve even more by adopting this kind of double bar graph, by representing this data, the data in the form of a double bar graph. A teacher can conclude, so I should take more attention towards so and so student to improve them. So this helps, this double bar graph helps in this way to compare the data of two collections of data by representing in the form of bars. Is it clear, children, how to represent this data in the form of a double bar graph? Yes? Right. Now we will discuss chance and probability, the last concept of this chapter. Now the last topic of this chapter is chance and probability. These words most probably we use in our daily life or in our conversation also. Like it may there is a chance of raining today. There is a chance of raining today, or there is it is more probable India may win the World Cup, or India may win the Test series. Like this, these words, these kind of words we will use in our general life also. So now, what is chance and what is probability? Try to understand with the following situation, the statements which we observe in our daily situations. So in our daily life, there are situations which will certain to happen, that is, which are sure to happen. Certain in the sense sure, which are compulsory to happen or must to be happen. And there are some situations where where the situations may not happen, that is impossible to happen. And there are some situations which may or may not happen. So the situations are classified in the three categories. One, it is sure to happen, or it is certain to happen. Certain means compulsory to happen, and that is impossible to happen, impossible to happen, that is it is not possible to happen. The third case, it is may or may not happen, may or may not happen. If there is a possibility, there is a possibility of happening, or it may not happen also. So all the situations we can categorize that sure to happen or certain to happen, impossible to happen, or may not to happen. See here some statements I wrote on the board. The sun coming up from the west. Is it possible? The sun, as we know that the sun always rises in the east. It sets in the west. The sun coming up from the west. Is it possible? It is not possible. So this situation, it is what? Impossible situation. Impossible situation. Similarly, an ant growing to 3 meters height. What is the height of this ant? It is very less, maybe in less than 1 centimeter will be there. an ant growing to 3 meters. Is it possible? 3 meters means it is how many? 300 centimeters, which is very much high. It is also not possible. So this is a impossible situation or impossible to happen. Impossible to happen. What about the third case? If you take a circle with a larger area, then its radius will be also longer. Then its radius will also be longer. You see, you take, it's a small example. So you take a small circle. What is this? It will have some radius. Like this is the radius of the circle R. And you take a bigger circle. What about their radius? It is you see here the radius is more, R1 and it is R2. Radius is more. So the circle with larger radius will have larger radius. So it is possible, it is sure, or it is certain to happen, or sure event. It is sure event. Then India winning the next series. In the test matches or in the one day series. It may possible or it may not possible. Therefore, it is may or may not happen. May or may not happen. Which one is may or may not happen? Why it is may or may not happen? Because it has two possibilities are there. It may happen or it may not happen. So here all the situations in our daily life we will categorize as sure to happen or certain to happen, impossible to happen, or may not happen. So these situations are what it happens or it may not happen. That comes under chance. How much it happens, how much possibility is there to happen that event or to not happen to that event is nothing but simply we will say it is probability. We will study more about probability in the higher classes. So what is chance? The situations which happen or which may not happen, that the situations itself it will give us what? Chances. Chance of winning the game, chance of losing the game. When we toss a coin, chance of getting a head, chance of getting a tail. Similarly, when we roll a die, we have 6 possible outcomes will be there. 1, 2, 3. When we roll a die, we will get 6 possible outcomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So getting 1 on the top surface of the die, or getting 2 on the top surface of the die, or getting 6 on the top surface of the die, or getting 7. Is it possible getting 7 on the die? Why? Because there is no 7, there is no 7th face, only 6 faces are there, and those 6 faces are numbered from 1 to 6. It is not possible to happen that event. So those are known as chances. And what is probability? Probability, it is the value of occurring that chance. The value of occurring that chance is known as probability in our general definition. So generally probability, we have theoretical probability is there and experimental probability. 2 types of probabilities are there. We will study even in the higher classes. Now it is about chance which happens or which are not happen. I hope you understand this. A coin is tossed once. What are the possible outcomes? If you toss a coin, so coin has head or tail, 2 faces are there. So we may get or we may get a tail. That's why head and tail are the possible outcomes. Head will represent with a H and tail will represent with a T. Similarly, a die is rolled once. What are the possible outcomes? A die means what? A cube, a cubical face. It has 6 faces are there, and on each 6 faces we have numbers are there from 1 to 6. So the possible outcomes are what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you find 7 or 8? No, it is not possible. We have only 6 faces are there, and they start from 1 to 6. These outcomes are known as equally likely outcomes. These outcomes are known as equally likely outcomes. Why? When we toss a coin, getting head will have chances equal to the getting a tail. Both will have the equal chances. It may head or it may tail. So both are 50% chances are there. Equal chances are there. Similarly, possible outcomes of when a die is rolled once. That is getting 1, getting 2. How much chance is there to getting 1 or to getting 7 or to getting 3 or 4 or 5 or 6? Again, all will have equal chances are there. That's why these outcomes are known as equally likely outcomes. Equally likely outcomes. And similarly, you see a bag is there that contains 3 red balls and 4 green balls. So getting a red ball, so there are only 3 chances are there, and getting a green ball, there are 4 chances are there. 4 chances are there. So now these outcomes are known as unlike outcomes, as they have unequal chances are there. 3 chances and 4 chances, unequal chances are there. So these outcomes are known as unlike outcomes. Unlike outcomes. So finally, what we can say, there are outcomes which are equally likely outcomes, and there are unlike outcomes are there. So we will discuss more in detail about this probability in class 8th, 9th and 10th. Now we will discuss what is probability, how to find the probability. Now let E is an event, then the probability of E is given by P of E means probability of event E is equals to number of favorable outcomes of event E. Favorable means what? The outcomes which are related to the given event E, and number of all possible outcomes. All possible outcomes means when we toss a coin, what are the possible outcomes? Head and tail, both 2 are there. Getting a head here in event E is getting a head. Getting a head is event E. How many favorable outcomes are there for getting a head when we toss a coin once? Only 1 chance is there. So it is favorable outcomes are 1 and possible outcomes are 2 is there. Therefore its probability it is 1 by 2. Similarly here we discussed in the previous session, it is a sure event, impossible event and other events that like may or may not happen. So probability of a sure event is 1, probability of an impossible event is 0, and probability of other events lie between 0 and 1. Therefore, probability of any event is greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 1. It lies in between 0 and 1, including 0 and 1. Including 0 and 1. Now, we will discuss finding a probability of a few problems. Now, example. If a coin is tossed once, then find the probability. Of getting a head, getting a tail. So 2 sums are there. So here, a coin is tossed. What are the possible outcomes we get? Possible outcomes. What are the possible outcomes we get? It is a head or a tail. How many chances are there of possible outcomes? It is 2 possible outcomes are there. Now, what is question 1? First question, getting a head. Probability of getting a head. Probability of getting a head. Getting a head. That is equals to P of E is equals to, what is the formula? It is number of favorable outcomes. Number of favorable outcomes. Outcomes of getting head. If it is getting tail means getting tail divided by number of all possible outcomes. So how many favorable outcomes are there for getting a head? There is only 1 favorable outcome is that getting head, that is number of favorable outcomes are 1 divided by number of all possible outcomes means both including head and tail. How many outcomes are there? 2. Therefore its probability is 1 by 2. The second question, probability of getting a tail. Probability of getting a tail. So what it is? P of E is equals to number of favorable outcomes of getting a tail. Number of favorable outcomes of getting a tail for finding the probability of tail. How many favorable outcomes are there for getting a tail? It is 1, and divided by total number of possible outcomes. How many possible outcomes are there? It is 2. So again we got the probability it is 1 by 2, and probability of getting a head is also 1 by 2. That's why these outcomes are known as equally likely outcomes. Like this we will find the probability of different situations in the real life situations also we will use this probability. Now, exercise number 3.4, the second bit. There are 6 marbles in a box with numbers from 1 to 6. 6 marbles are there in a box and the numbers are given to those marbles 1 to 6 marked on each of them. Marble 1, number with 1. Other marble with number 2. The other marble with number 3. Like that, it is 6 marbles, 6 numbers were there. What is the probability of drawing a marble with number 2? What is the probability of drawing a marble with number 5? What is the probability of drawing a marble with number 7? So generally to find the probability what? We should do two things, that is number of favorable outcomes of that event and all possible outcomes. Number of possible outcomes. So number of possible outcomes, how many possible outcomes are there here? Number of possible outcomes. Possible outcomes. How many possible outcomes are there here? Here we have 6 balls are there. Definitely each ball will have one possible outcome will be there. So 6 balls are there. Therefore the number of possible outcomes are how many it is? 6. Now what is the first question? Find the probability of drawing a marble with number 2. With number 2. That is P of E is equals to, what is the formula? P of E is equals to number of favorable outcomes. Number of favorable outcomes of that event. Outcomes of that event divided by number of all possible outcomes. Number of all possible outcomes. Possible outcomes. So number of all possible outcomes. That is how many favorable outcomes are there for a marble with number 2. With number 2 only one marble is there. That is favorable outcomes are 1 divided by number of possible outcomes are it is 6. Therefore it is 1 by 6. Similarly the second question it is, what is the probability of drawing a marble with the number 5? With the number 5, how many favorable outcomes are there for with the number 5? It is only 1 divided by number of all possible outcomes it is 6. Therefore it is 1 by 6. That the probability of drawing a marble with number 5. Similarly the third bit it is what is the probability of drawing a marble with number 7? With number 7. So do you find any marble with number 7? No. No. Then what we call this kind of events? Impossible events. What we call these events? Impossible events which are not possible to happen. Therefore probability of this kind of events it is 0. How many favorable outcomes are there to have a marble with the number 7? Marble with number. How many favorable outcomes are there? 0 favorable outcomes. Why? Because it is impossible to happen. Possible outcomes are it is 6. Therefore 0 by 6 is equal to 0. 0 by anything it is 0 other than 0. Therefore the probability of the events which are not possible, that is impossible events, then probability is 0. Like this we will find the probabilities of different events in different situations. I hope you understand this. With this, the whole chapter, that is data handling, is completed. So what we studied in this data handling, the first topic it is collecting data, organizing the data, recording the data. After all those things, we discussed representative values, that is measures of central tendency like mean, arithmetic mean, it is also known as average, mode and median we discussed. Then visual representations like bar graph and double bar graph, how to draw the bar graph or how to construct a double bar graph. When we use bar graph and when we use double bar graph we discussed, and we have answered the questions on the bar graphs, that is bar graph and double bar graph. And the last concept we studied chance and probability. Chance and probability. This chance and probability is introduced here. It is you will study in detail in the higher classes. I hope you understand today's concept in the whole chapter. And today's homework is exercise number 3.3, question number 4 and question number 5. Exercise number 3.4, it is question number 1 and question number 3. So total 4 questions are there. Please complete the homework and thank you very much.